Absolutely. Welcome, everyone, officially to our weekly Wednesday Lunch and Learn. So before we kick started, I want to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me, and I'll look for my counterpart, my alter ego, Amber, to share a little bit about herself. So my name is Michelle Brown. I'm a certified executive coach and proud owner of Into Action Coaching. Into Action Coaching is a full service, sort of holistic executive coaching and talent management agency. And it is my purpose and my passion. This is why the topics that we've covered last Wednesday and today are so near and dear to my heart, because I am living my purpose. And Amber and I started this initiative at the beginning of this sort of pandemic because we felt that there were some relevant topics that so many of you wanted to hear. So we are, proud and delighted to be spending these lunch hours with you. So Amber, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm trying to find different things to say about myself for those of you who join us week after week. So I will share a little personal things about myself and then about my company. So my name is Amber. I am from Detroit, Michigan originally. I grew up there, and then I came here to New Jersey at 18 to go to school, and I've stayed here ever since. I won't tell you how old I am. I have two lovely kids. You may hear them in the background, and I have a dog named Kane. Now, professionally, I am the founder of the Courts Wellness Collective that I started a few years ago with the desire to provide spaces for women to connect with each other and to experience and support each other through their personal and professional growth. Currently, I'm working on putting personal growth online right at your fingertips with a series of online classes and a repository of self-help kind of videos that will be on my website soon. So if you haven't yet, please check it out. You'll see in our emails how to get in touch with us after. But it is my pleasure to be with you again this week. So hello.
Awesome. Thanks, Amber. One thing before we introduce, Amber's going to introduce our special guests today. I want to address there's a couple of questions coming through asking about the recordings. So we have those recordings available. I know it's on my website, intuactioncoaching.com, as well as, Amber, it's on your website as well, correct?
I put the link in the chat.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So the good news is if you can't attend any of them, or you can't stay for all of these weekly Wednesdays, we have each of them recorded. And as Amber mentioned, she's going to put it in the chat, but we also have it on our respective website. So you can go back and listen and watch and take notes and all that kind of good stuff. All right, so I'm going to provide a bit of context just so that when Amber introduces our special guests, you kind of know what you're in store for. So during last Wednesday's talk, the topic is pursuing your passion. We talked a lot about the why. There's so many that are in transition, scratching their heads, trying to figure out, is this all there is? I'm not really happy and satisfied with what my career has been. And now I'm looking to the future to sort of determine, what is it that will help me really be satisfied and fulfilled? So we went through a process of looking to uncover the why. And today we're going to be speaking to the how, the actual steps that one can take once they've, as best you can, uncovered what your God-given gifts, talents, skills, and abilities are. So Amber, take it away and introduce our special guests.
Sure. So we are very excited to have two phenomenal women here with us today who actually specialize in this space of career coaching and motivating people to move forward in their careers. We have Lisa with us. Lisa, can you wave to everyone and say hello?
Hello.
Yeah, Lisa has joined us. You may have seen her before in some of our other calls. She has joined us before, but we are giving her the highlight today because she's got some great stuff to share with you. Lisa is a certified career coach, trainer, and motivational speaker. She's the owner of Careers Advance, specializing in professional training and development, serving a myriad of industries. Lisa is also a dynamic success coach and change action partner with more than 17 years of experience experience in professional development. Her specialties extend to leadership excellence, emotional intelligence, workplace dynamics, career succession planning, and public speaking excellence. So welcome, Lisa. We're excited to speak with you. Chelsea, please wave and say hello.
Hi, everyone.
That's Chelsea. Chelsea C. Williams is a talent strategist, a professional trainer and speaker, and the proud founder and CEO of College Code. College Code is just incredibly awesome. If you have any kids who are in college or going to college, please check out her website. She'll speak a bit about it, I'm sure, as we talk today. But she's got some great resources there for not just college students, but also people who are looking to start over in their career. With 75% of the workforce expected to encompass Generation Z and millennials, by 2025, 75%. That's crazy. College Code plays a role in preparing for the future of work by helping national organizations develop and retain diverse early career talent. Chelsea is a highly sought after contributor for the Muse, the go-to destination for the next generation workforce, to research companies and careers, and the National Association of Colleges and Employers. Prior to College Code, Chelsea spent 12 years on Wall Street managing and leading global human capital initiatives across the US, Europe, and Asia. So, welcome. This is going to be an amazing talk. I'm going to turn back over the mic to Michelle, who's going to lead us today in conversation, and then we'll just dig right in.
Cool. Thank you, Amber. So as I mentioned earlier, part one last Wednesday was the how, and was the why. And we provided a workbook because we wanted to provide you with some bridge work, some field work. We're coaches, right? So for us, it's all about not just listening to us or pondering in your mind or contemplating, the answers to some of these questions, but that workbook was provided so that you could really kind of put pen to paper. So I want to take a moment before we kick it off to our special guest today and ask the question to anyone who, did any of the information in the workbook or participated in last week's webinar, if they want to be brave enough to share any ahas that they got, any discoveries that they got about what their purpose is, or even, read their personal mission statement. Anybody brave enough?
Michelle, can you hear me?
Yes, who's speaking?
It's Mindy. Hi, everybody. And I was not on the call last week. This is my first call. As Michelle had mentioned, I worked with her a long time ago at the NBA. So I wasn't on the call to discuss the why, but I've had a lot of experience over the years. So I'm very clear on my why, on why I'm making some life changes right now. So without even hearing what you said, I'll just kind of tell you, and if that fills into your, lessons of last week, that's great. If not, direct me elsewhere. But so I have worked for the past 30, 40 years, worked very hard, worked for other people, raised a family, realized my own talents within. Some of them, were very helpful for me with the companies I was working for. Some of them just had nothing to do with the companies I was working for. But at the end of the day, the why for me is that I want to take my talents, my experience, and make it all for me instead of working for somebody else. I have two grown children, and it's about really taking a lifetime of learning my strengths and my weaknesses and relying upon myself moving forward. So
brilliant.
That's my story.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting, Mindy, your story is our story, right? This is absolutely what these two parts are intended. What you made reference to is sometimes we get to a point in our life that with the experiences that we've had, and even the opportunities presented, we start to ask ourselves, well, wait a minute, I'm really uncovering what it is that I don't want, right? And even with that leaves a void to, if I know what I don't want, well, then what do I want, right? So yes, this is the journey that we're on, and this is absolutely right context for what we're going to be diving into today. And this is really kind of the how. So, so that you all have the proper framework, Chelsea and Lisa are going to walk us through 5 steps that even if you're still in a level of ambiguity and you may or may not have uncovered what your purpose is, even with that, what do you do once that purpose has been uncovered? So I'm going to take them through each point sort of, or at least prompt them step by step. The first step will be around self-assessments and any kind of tools that one can take to better understand what their values are, what their talents are. The second point that they'll speak to is getting into the research. You know, what are the career options? The third point will be defining your target market. The fourth will be, how do you network? How do you navigate, especially, you know, under these circumstances where, you know, setting up in-person meetings may not be possible, but you know, it's how do I start having conversations with people, and we call it conversation for possibility. And then the fifth is what marketing materials, you know, from resume, CV, social media. So those are sort of the 5 steps that they're going to be taking us through. I wanted you all to kind of understand the framework that we're going to be following. All right, so I'm going to kick it off, Chelsea and Lisa. So I'm going to direct this to you, Lisa. So tell us a little bit about assessments and the value of them. You know, what is it intended to help us understand when we're going down this path?
Great. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you both, Amber and Michelle, for bringing me in. And I'm excited to work with you, Chelsea, today to sort of anchor our support for Michelle and Amber's audience here. The question around assessments is something that I think we've all heard of. They've been around for actually decades. The thing about them is I don't know if folks really think they have value. Great, I know about myself. Why do I gotta take this test? And a lot of people call it a test. I wanna say it's not a test. There is no pass or fail. It's simply a tool that you put in your own information, things that you know about yourself already, in order to then yield a report that provides insights as to what your skills, interests, values, and personality traits can lend themselves to specific careers. Now you have skill assessments, personality assessments, and career assessments. And I recommend that you determine which one you think you need, if not all. They kind of work hand in hand. If you're going to choose a career or a business venture, as Mindy, you're talking about maybe starting your own business, there are a few things that we want to know about ourselves. And I kind of termed it, calling it the VIPs assessment. Understanding your values, what drives you. Understanding your interests, really what you like to do for fun. Your personality, the work environment, and sort of the character and the culture that you feel you would excel in most. And then your skills, your functional, your soft and hard skills that matter to the job at hand that you're eventually going to choose. So some of the tools that I work with are the self-directed search, and that'll be on the tool that you're going to share with your audience, Michelle. It's by John Holland. It's a great tool that has you answer simple yes or no questions around your skills, your personality, your characters, and your value. And the output is literally a list of careers that fit those traits. It's a great place to start if you're not really sure, what position do I want in this world? What kind of job do I want to hold? We talk about purpose, but at some point you have to define it into some role that you want to play. So the self-directed search, you've probably heard of the Myers-Briggs. There's a variety of different tools that you can Google. I like the self-directed search because it does literally yield a career list from which you to take what we're going to get to step 2 in terms of the research. So I'm a big user of assessments. It helps you, to your word, Michelle, put pen to paper and give you a place to start. when anyone comes to me and say, I'm trying to figure out my next step, I said, have you figured out who you are, what you're good at, what you like to do? Because those are the key points that will lend themselves to having those aha moments and give you a place to start. As a matter of fact, I'll always say, what did you dream about when you were a kid?
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised how many of the things we abandoned when we were a kid could be an opportunity for us to explore now. So I recommend that all of you take a moment to use an assessment tool to kind of open up your eyes to who you are, what you want. The one thing I do caution, though, is that you consider working with a coach. I find that folks that use assessment tools, especially in high school, they'll give you the assessment and you get the results, and, well, I don't want to be a postal carrier. And mine? I took an assessment when I was, I think, 17, and it said I should go into the military. Well, listen, I always wanted to go in the boot camp because I had 3 brothers. I wanted to be a rah-rah, but I didn't want to be in the military. I learned that I needed to kind of think broadly about the results. So if you're going to consider taking assessments, I suggest that you do work with a coach to help you work through the language and the output of those tools to take it to the next step.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. So Chelsea, on that same point, with your experience also as a career coach, 2 things. Can you give us any specific types of assessments that you've used with your clients? Number 1, and number 2, expound a little bit more beyond perhaps what Lisa shared in terms of what will an assessment tell an individual? What's the outcome that makes it relevant and important?
Thank you so much, Michelle, Amber, for the invitation. Everyone, I'm so excited to be here for this lunch hour. Lisa, you started off perfectly by giving us a foundation. I think, if I was to give you one tool that's really important, particularly for those of you who want to pivot or reinvent yourself in another way, I love VIA character assessment. It is a fabulous tool. It's free. We'll send you the link out so you don't even have to worry about it. But I love it because it's values-based. And so Lisa was sharing some examples of great tools, but if you're really to the point now where you're thinking about reinvention, or you're thinking about starting a business or making a career transition, knowing what you value, or really knowing your character, like what you're anchored by in terms of what matters to you, is really important. And so with this particular assessment, there's 24 different values, character, output that people have ranked ordered once the assessment spits out to you. And so just like, we were describing, you answer questions, you don't think about it. It's not a test. It's like a moment for you to take a pause and really think about what fuels you. I always tell my coaching clients, do it like on a Sunday afternoon, do it like on a Saturday, morning when you're up, so that you haven't put too much thought into it. It's just a very authentic response. And then it will rank order for you what values and characters matter most to you. And so, as an example for me, my number 1 is love of learning and love of just study and understanding. And to Lisa's point, it's so amazing because growing up as a child, the one thing my family would say is you spent so much time reading and taking classes and pretending you were a coach when you were in middle school. And it's true. You might not see it at the time, but it will come back in your life later on. So I think that's a very authentic way for you to just see what matters to me. And then in terms of how you use the tool, we've used it a few different ways. One way we use it is if you've done the activity of determining what career pathways might be advantageous for you in this next stage, you could use the VIA character assessment to help you determine what types of organizations will actually support your professional interests. So for me, having love of learning as my number 1, if I was in the job market, it'd be important for me to be a part of an organization that has professional development and training and education opportunities for me to embark on, because that's fueling a value that I have. For other people, sometimes they may have gratitude as their number 1. And so you might want to find an organization that has a strong philanthropic initiative where you can volunteer and engage with the team. These are all things that really help you make sure in your organization that you're playing off of what matters most to you.
Perfectly said. So to reiterate, what Amber and I will be providing you after will be certain links. We're speaking pretty briefly about what some of those assessments are, but as a takeaway, we'll be providing. But as an honorable mention, if any of you are familiar with Gallup's Strength Finders, that's an incredible assessment because, again, it sort of helps you understand what are you really good at. Lisa and I, well, I think many of us as coaches on the call today are certified in a number of these assessments. And one of the assessments that I use with my clients is a modified DISC. If any of you are familiar with DISC, which is really measuring your communication and your behavioral style. And the value in taking a DISC career assessment helps you understand what type of actual culture that is important to you, what type of manager you're going to need. I tell clients all the time, you're not just being interviewed by a potential employer if that's the direction that you want to go in. You know, some of us on the call today may be interested in uncovering our skills so that we can start our own business. But if you are looking for another sort of gainful employee position, you're interviewing that company as well. So understanding, you know, what your values are, what your interests are, what your style is, it's important because that will help direct you to weed out companies that are not aligned with that. Okay, thank you guys.
Just
All
to
right.
add to that,
Yeah.
before we move on, it's just, this ties back into last week in our talk about what you do for a living and that being fulfilling to you. And so just to put it into context, these assessments are so that you can be intentional about knowing what it is that you need and act on that. And so, because a lot of times when we initially go for a career and we just look for money and we look at it for, you know, maybe the position that we're going into, and then once we get into it and we realize that it's not as fulfilling, then when you want to take a step back and move forward, as we're talking about pursuing a more purposeful career, then that's just such a strong place to start. And I'm so glad, Chelsea and Lisa, that you gave us those tools, because for some of you that may have found it hard to go and identify what it is that you need or what it is that, what strengths that you have, these assessments will help you to figure that out.
If I can anchor that, Amber, that is exactly the nuts and bolts of the assessments. Mm-hmm. When you're asked, what do I want to be when I grow up? What do I want to do? What am I good at? It's hard to answer those questions when you haven't answered those questions. So the whole assessment is about asking you, and you don't know, what am I good at? How do I put it in words? So these assessments are a series of questions that you get to ponder about you and really peel back the layers. Because I don't know, how do I define my skill, my talents, my interest? Whatever assessment you choose to go to, we mentioned a few, it is about diving in and just having someone else ask you the questions that, because it's kind of hard to be objective with yourself. That's what I love about the assessment. They frame these questions in all kinds of different ways to get you to think versus just staying in the stuck mode. So just wanted to anchor that question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to sort of step into step number 2, and that's the research. So once we've uncovered, to the best of our ability, what these assessments reveal, I'm going to pose this to you, Chelsea. What should an individual do? What should be the next step as it relates to sort of the research, looking at career options?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, ideally, you know, all of the different assessments we mentioned varies, but I think when you are thinking about research, whether it is a particular role, whether it's a particular organization, I think you want to start with just a list. And so I will normally charge my my clients. I'll say, you know, we talked about, you took the assessment, and now I want you to sit with it for a day or two, and then just like free-form out from your perspective without much thought, careers that interest you. Even if you don't know much about them, just write it down. Employers that are attractive to you, and that's the part I really love. Just write down any organization, consumer focused or service based, that just, you love their vision, you love their mission, you love the product. Just write them down. And so I typically will have people start with that type of just free form of writing kind of down what is of interest to them. And then we can use that as a pillar to work forward to do research. Because I think a lot of times people will say, get on LinkedIn. And many of you may be on LinkedIn. But if you haven't, again, to the point, if you haven't assessed, if you haven't wrote down, at least you have a baseline, somewhere to focus on, it can be very overwhelming. And it's really hard for you to use tools like LinkedIn or simply just to use tools like Google if you don't have a starting point. And so I think that list is super essential. And so I'll just use the example because it's a little bit easier for me. Employers. So if you've already identified a role that's interesting to you, maybe you're interested in social media marketing as an example, or really any type of digital marketing. You write down the skills that are necessary for you to excel in this role. And then if you write down 20 different organizations that have piqued your interest, then you can use that list and you can work backwards to determine, well, do any of these organizations have a digital marketing department? Most of them probably do, particularly now. And so then you can go into determining which one of these organizations is going to align with my values, which one of these organizations is going to align with my interests. And then I think now, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, which of these organizations actually may be hiring more than normal at this particular time. And so I think the layer that's important in research now in COVID period is who's hiring? Who's hiring? Because you might have a passion for fashion, and that's great. But anyone who's done research knows right now, the retail fashion space, there's a lot of movement happening, right? People have not been able to go into stores. There's actually been a challenge over the last few years across the retail space. And so you might have to think broadly about other places where you can really hone into that passion that you have that could look different. So I think a list helps you not to get too tunnel visioned and allows you to think a little bit broadly as you go through the research process. Really quickly before Lisa speaks, I would just say for LinkedIn, I normally tell people once you've wrote the list of employers that are interesting to you, then you want to go and use LinkedIn as a tool and make sure you're following those organizations. That's a very easy, practical way for you to make sure you're in the know of what's going on in their ecosystem. You might also find yourself, if you're interested in digital marketing, starting to follow #digital marketing on LinkedIn. So you get curated news into your feed that is specific to the world that you're interested in transitioning into. So I just gave you a few things for you to think about, but that's really important in the research umbrella.
Yeah.
Good, Chelsea. So Lisa, speaking again to the research, can you address, because there may be many of our attendees here today who are similar to Mindy, looking to start their own. They don't necessarily want to work for a company. So, what might be the approach that they can take if you're now looking to branch off on your own and start your own enterprise?
Sure. I will second your notion, Chelsea, about lists. I'm a to-do list fiend. I think just no matter where anyone is in your process, when you wake up in the morning and if you feel that I'm just going to start figuring out my next step, is that you put a little process or structure to your process here, because it can get overwhelming thinking about the why and the where and the who and the what. So if you kind of write down your list to give yourself sort of a step-by-step process, and that's why I created the 6 steps that I'm sharing with you, Michelle. The assessments, research, eventually you're going to get into networking, which we'll touch on, but we're not there yet, because I don't think you can explore networking conversations until you have something to bring to that conversation. So specifically for folks who are thinking about starting a business of their own, the assessments will help you with that to determine the what it is that you want to do. Because if you're going to offer up a product or a service, it needs to be something that you are passionate about, because you'll get bored with it, it'll get too frustrating, and you won't get through the pain points. So knowing what it is that you want to sell or deliver as a product is really the first place to start. So that's why the assessments can help you with that. Assessments can also help you to identify what strengths you have to be a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, and where's some of the areas that you may need to bolster in terms of being an entrepreneur. Because as Michelle, Amber, and Chelsea and I know, and many of you on the call may know, you're going to wear many hats. So understanding what skills you have for wearing those hats and where you need to bolster up on is also good to know. As far as the what, I've got a lot of folks that come to me. It's why I do entrepreneurial transitioning too, to say, you know what, I'm done working for somebody else. I want to do something new. And I'll ask them some of the same questions I asked folks that are thinking about the career. And here's what I'll say. There's 3 questions I think everyone on this call in search mode should answer for themselves. position, industry, and company. Now, the company could be your own, and you'll get there, but what position do you want to play in this world? What industries do you want to play in? That comes down to your passions. And then what company do you want to wear your hat? And if it happens to be your own, then the research is, what product do I want to sell? What role am I going to play? Because I play several different roles in my practice, and there's some roles I can play. I have to bring in a contractor, consultant, etc., to do the roles that I'm not good at and I don't want to do. So get to that list, Chelsea, to your point, is to write down, hey, what am I passionate about? How is that going to translate into a product or service that the market's going to need? If I'm not sure, let me research, what does the market need now? What is going to be my audience or my consumer or my target audience for what it is that I want to bring to the table? What work structure do I want? Do I want to be a contractor? Do I want to be a consultant, freelancer? There's some similarities between the two, but you may want to research to understand those different kind of role structures and business structures. And then moving forward to investigating, what is it going to take for me to launch my business? What do I need? Finances, tools, systems, processes, people. That's where your lists are. So investigating what entrepreneurship means, and then you can sort of develop the what you need to get that off the table.
Lisa, I'm glad you bring that up. We're actually going to fast track next week and do how to start your business. So we are switching up the schedule because we know that there's some of you who are going to say, oh, I really want to get into that business that I've been thinking about. So although the schedule has a different topic for next week, if you've seen it, I am going to make that change right after this, and we will be talking about how to start and grow your business next week. So you'll want to join us for that if you're interested, so we can dig in more there.
Great, I'll join it.
So good, guys. We are, kind of covering right now the first 2 points. But before we continue, because now we want to dive into defining a bit more of your target market, but I want to pause and I want to open it up. If anyone, given what you have heard our experts speak to, if you've got questions or comments, we want to open up the floor.
There is too many women on this call to be quiet.
Hi, everyone. I joined a little bit late, and so I missed the different programs you suggested to do an assessment. Could you just rename them or spell them or tell me, anything?
Hi, Kimberly.
Hi.
Yeah. So what we spoke to, Chelsea, what was the one you made reference to was about values, I think?
Yeah, mine is VIA character assessment. That's a big one for values, character, and the like. And I'll just add on really quickly, anyone who is early career level, student level, super strong, which is a Myers-Briggs assessment that's typically used in the career development of early career. That's a great one as well.
Strength Finders, Gallup was another one that we made reference to. And the third one is based on DISC. It's a career assessment. But keep in mind, with whatever you may have missed, we'll be doing tips and takeaways, and certainly this whole recording will be posted on Amber and my respective websites. So you won't miss a thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Kimberly. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Yes,
Hi there,
Desi.
Desi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi there. It's so great to see you, Michelle.
I know.
I had a quick question about self-employment and entrepreneurship. You mentioned that there's a slight difference, and you don't need to get into the weeds of it, but you mentioned 3 things, whether you want to be a contractor, a consultant, or there was another
Freelance.
A freelancer. Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure. They're usually, they're somewhat interchangeable depending on the industry and the field that you're in.
Right.
Contractor, you can have a short-term contract or a long-term contract with an organization. If you're doing a long-term, maybe you're working with one company. If you're doing short-term, then you can have multiple contracts. Consulting, right. Similar, that you're on a contract basis, but you're considered a consultant, so there's an advisory capacity in that role. That
Yeah,
helps.
and this is perfect. Again, as Amber mentioned, for anyone who's on the call who is interested in traveling that track, you want to be part of Amber's talk next week, because we're going to be diving in specifically to all the various, because what we're talking about here are different business models, right? And roles as an entrepreneur that you can take. So yeah, definitely stay tuned for that.
Yeah, and Michelle, if you don't mind me just sharing, I feel pulled to share this with the group, but I think it's really important for everyone on here to ask yourself the question, what problem am I solving? Lisa spoke to it when she was speaking, but I think whether you're interested in being in the workforce, excuse me, and working for an organization or starting your own business, I wish people had told me when I first started off how important it is for you to have that answer to that question. What problem are you solving? Because you can have the purpose, and I know you can have the purpose, but if you're not able to define the problem and speak to the problem and meet the problem, I think it's very difficult for you to excel in either of those spaces. And so really try to hone into that question.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. Mind you, I may not pose the question and open up the floor, but if you have a question, post it in the chat or raise your hand, because we want to make sure that we're addressing and not skipping over you. All right. So we started talking, and I'm going to pose this to you, Chelsea. So we were talking a little bit about sort of defining the target market, right? Position, function, role, industry, company. Can you speak a bit more to that in terms of just how important it is being intentional and what an approach an individual can take around defining the target market and how they should proceed with that?
Yeah, I mean, the target market, again, it's back to the question that I just posed. What problem are you solving? Because your target market is your target market because there's a problem that they have that you can solve. Whether you're a professional and you're working in an organization and maybe it's accounting, and we know that accountants solve major problems. They can help us to mitigate problems, I should say. And so knowing that up front allows you to service that target market more exceptionally. Or if you're a business owner and you're going into business, you've identified the problem or two or three that your business services help to solve. And so the target market piece, Michelle, is really, really important, because if you don't have the target market, you'll be everywhere. You'll be kind of throwing a dart and it will never hit the target market. And I say that from being there before. So it's really important to do the work up front and be able to identify, what is my target market? What are their pain points? And to the point about research, with Google now, I promise you, everything is at our fingertips. And so it's nothing but a Google search away. If you think about, even questions you might pose out to kind of determine the target market, this is another space, and we're going to move into it. But when you think about your network and you think about exploratory conversations with people, just to hear from their lens what their challenges are, where they see opportunities to and through COVID, I think those are really healthy things to do to help you identify what your target market is. So it's not just research online, it's also conversations that you might have with your network, certainly with people in the ecosystem of this conversation, but that's really, really important to make sure that you are focused.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Lisa, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, we seem to be thinking a lot alike there, Chelsea. I'm big on focus, because you can have your head in the clouds and you think about all the things that we can do and want to do. And when I ask folks, all right, what are you thinking about? What kind of job do you want? What kind of career do you want? Oh yeah, I don't know, I'm open to a lot of things. And then they stay there, and it's wonderful to be open, but if you don't have clarity and direction, you will not land. And that dart that you throw will just fall, will just have too many holes in the wall because it's picking on too many things. And how will you be able to eventually market yourself when you don't have clarity about what your target is? Because we cannot be all things to all people. To you, Chelsea, I wish years ago I would have known a little bit more about target marketing, even when I started my practice, because I didn't know what I was doing when I started. I had no idea. It took me 10 years to really figure it out, because I was kind of going with the motions. So when it comes to your target, think about who you want to serve. Do you want to work with children, the elderly, the homeless, That comes to your passion. You want to work with executives? Do you want to work with corporate? Do you want to work with educational institutions? Who do you literally want to serve? Where that you might land will be something different. Like you might work for a corporate company that serves educational institutions, but figure out who you want to serve first. So then you can then step back and then figure out, now let's see, how am I going to target myself to that target? Because we know if you want to serve, you can do your research. And literally, I'll do this with my clients. Okay, who do you want to serve? Children, adults, what have you? Go into Google. It is an amazing tool. It's helped me in so many ways. You can Google companies that service the homeless in New York City, organizations that work with college students in Ohio. You can literally put the whole question in there with a town or region, your audience, and then whether you want to work with a company or institution, and then see what comes back. It's amazing. If you're looking for a job, just understand the job market. Social media jobs in Alabama. Yes, I know you get job search engines, but you can just read job descriptions to understand what it is that they're looking for, etc. So pose that question out there really specifically into Google, whatever source you're going to use, to see what information will you about. That'll help you narrow your target. Or narrow your search, excuse me, after you define your target.
Perfect, perfect. So here's what's interesting, and I just want to add to what you both have shared. You know, certainly before the pandemic, and hopefully it will still be evident beyond that. What I've uncovered as a career coach as well is companies are looking for passion. Function will get you in the door. Passion will keep you hired and tenured and will help you advance within an organization. So that is why it is absolutely imperative that you uncover what your passion is, what your purpose is, because you want to make sure that you're aligning that. So in terms of identifying your target market, as Lisa and Chelsea have made reference, look at organizations whose mission statement resonates with you, whose vision resonates with you. If they've got corporate social responsibility as a strategic initiative, you know, if that's important to you, you're going to be able to speak to that as an alignment to what you like to do. And then you can really speak passionately about who you are, what you do, and what you can bring to the organization. And then there's almost immediate alignment. So when you're going through your list, as they both have mentioned, to kind of come up with your short list, make sure that you are identifying what an organization's mission and vision is. What pumps Kool-Aid? Are they an organization with a soul? Who are they serving? That is where you want to make sure that your passion is aligned with theirs. And then you're expressing that, because when they see that light bulb of you being really animated, trust me, you know, it will get you past, you know, round 1 and round 2 of interviews. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's keep moving, because gosh knows we could just keep talking all afternoon. So this next step 4 is about networking. All right, so, you know, now that you've kind of uncovered what it is that you're good at, you've done a little bit of research about your target market, you've narrowed it down to, okay, what's the position, what's the industry, what's the company, and now you're crafting your short list. What now, Lisa, should they do relative to networking? What's the networking campaign or strategy?
I appreciate you sharing the word strategy or plan, because I think we need to have a networking plan. Going into very haphazardly can get very frustrating very quickly. And you know, they say you only have one chance to make a great impression. And it's true, even to your network, you want to come off as having some solid understanding as to what you're looking for and what you're interested in, so you can guide that conversation very specifically. So how I approach networking is I do a 5WH approach, to have a plan. Define your who you can speak with. Let's identify the people that are in your circle and outside your circle that will have some value for your conversations. Folks that either have insights to the industry you're interested in, folks that can provide you connections to people inside your industry that you want to go into. So let's start defining the who that you can speak with. You can even develop literally an Excel spreadsheet. Be tactical about it. get a piece of paper and make your columns, however you need to do it, but pen to paper, mouse to computer can really get it really structured on paper. So start thinking about your who, go through your LinkedIn contacts, throw through your contacts to identify folks that are in the space you want to play and could be good resources. By the way, for advice, opinion, and connection, you're never going to ask a networking person, your contacts, who's hiring, can you pass on my resume? We're going to take that out of your conversation. You're going to ask, hey, I'm looking for a job. Take the word job out of your conversation. You're going at this for advice and opinion. So define the who, then define the what. What do I want to know? After you've done your research, now you can come up with questions that come out of your research. I found out this. Ooh, that leads me to need to know this. So what are the questions that you can ask each of your who on your list so that you can direct those conversations?
Perfect, perfect. Chelsea, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, no, I think that, Lisa, that was so great. And I think, you know, like the Nike slogan, just do it, is like so necessary for this conversation, because I think for many of us, there's a hesitation to make the ask. I know I struggled with it for years, like even in the people closest to me. Am I asking too much? Like, do I need to look elsewhere? And I would say what I normally tell my coaching clients is, just write a list, 20 people. I usually will have people really shoot high, 20 individuals in your network. I don't think, you know, and I tell people just write 20 people, because sometimes you want to think to yourself, well, this person probably is the best person to ask for support. This person won't have anything to offer. And I will tell you, in business, there are some people who I would never think to understand my world, who've actually been the best pioneers in helping me get opportunities, simply because they know what I do, and they keep it in their mind almost like this is what Chelsea does. And so if they hear something in a webinar, if they hear something out with their family, they will make a connection because they know. And so, you know, I am one of those people, I will say, I think Lisa said, go into it from a place of understanding. And I think that's right. And just being able to really get some thought and opinion from people. I also feel as though women sometimes need to just be very clear about the ask. Certainly you need to do your research. Certainly you need to be professional. But I think time, I'm always thinking about time. Time is of the essence. So at some point you have to make the ask very clear. And I think people really need to know, you know, what is it that you need and how can I support you? So I'm a big proponent in, at the end of a conversation after we're checking in, I'll ask the person, how can I support you? So be helpful to that person. And then when they ask you, how can I support you? Don't say, well, I'm okay. I'm good. Share what it is that they can do to support you, or you'll always be in a place of giving, and you may not feel as though you're getting anything back simply because you haven't really put yourself out there and made it clear to people. So I think that that's really important to do. I think, again, LinkedIn is essential. Everyone is home now. Most people get their jobs through their network. 85% of jobs are through referral. It's not through just applying online and just hoping that you're going to get, you know, an email from a company. Particularly now, those relationships that you have, you want to maximize them because it's going to help really set you up for success.
Fantastic. Amber, there was a point you wanted to make?
Yeah, just to Chelsea's point, I think that one of the pieces of your success also that that could be shared with everyone is how specific you are. When you're specific, people know how to help you. And when you're niche, people know who you're there for and who you're serving. The name of Chelsea's company is College Code. So that speaks volumes. Okay, they know exactly where they can support you. And so just wanting to point that out for us, even though that's her within a company, you within a position or a company, the more specific and niche you are, the more someone knows how they can support you. When we give those lofty kind of big answers, people, it goes over the head and the conversation keeps going and they don't really know what they can take from it to support you moving on. So.
Mm-hmm. And to underscore what, you know, all three of them have just said, the approach I often like to take my clients through in terms of strategy and planning. Number one is create your own personal board of directors. And, you know, that may be a topic or a webinar in and of itself. And a personal board of directors, as you're doing this networking campaign, it may be a prior manager that you have worked for in the past and who knows you and likes you, and they may be able to kind of give you tips and techniques, and certainly they may even leverage you and introduce you to people that they are willing to introduce you to. A mentor is another person on your board of directors, a coach. So think about creating your own personal board of directors. The second thing to also think about when you're navigating this campaign is, don't go at it with, even when you've identified maybe the company, the position, the function, don't go at your inquiry to whoever you're connecting with looking for a job. The first step should be exploratory, introductory. You want to find out, you want to be like an investigative reporter looking to understand enough about that organization and what that individual's role is. So do not go in with seeking to identify a position that they may be hiring for. It's the within. What's in it for me? What's in it for that other individual? Because, I don't know, they just may see it a little too direct and a little too polarizing if you're immediately having that initial conversation and it's all about, what positions are open within your organization. And then lastly,
Michelle, to that point, I can share, I have like an outreach script, if you will. If you're looking to reach out on LinkedIn and just start a conversation, to your point, Amber, it is about being specific. Don't just have those lofty questions. So I've been doing my research on X. I'd like to get your opinion on Y, so they know what they're coming to you for. So I have sort of like an outreach script that your audience here might be able to leverage some of that language just to be forthcoming, but be specific on the ask.
That's perfect. And then lastly, because boy, time is flying by. Lastly, the other third point I want to make is, when you're using LinkedIn, and this is going to gear us into the last step, LinkedIn just being one of the many sort of social media tools, begin to look for who the hiring manager is, the position that you may be reporting into. You can actually even, I think, bypass HR. If you're timid, get bold. Don't necessarily, because people in HR, they're going to have screeners that are looking at a gazillion resumes. Look to identify who the hiring manager is and look to see how you can get an audience with that individual. And again, make it about them. I want to hear about your role, how you got to where you are. Tell me about the company. You'd be pleasantly surprised to know how many executives or leaders within an organization would be happy to spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes talking to a complete stranger because you have expressed interest enough about their organization that they're willing to give you time. Okay. Lastly, let's talk about marketing materials, right? Resume, CVs. How do we leverage social media as a way to, pursue our passions? Chelsea.
Yeah, this is like a great way to end. I mean, I think if you really follow the 5 beautiful steps that have been outlined today, it really sets you up for this last somewhat for this last piece to be an easier process for you. With so many people applying for jobs, again, if you haven't done due diligence to really think through what's my story, what's my skills, what problem am I solving, and that hasn't been clearly articulated in a resume, which to Lisa's point, this is why I think it's so good to work with a coach, someone who has looked at thousands of resumes and can really help you with the storytelling piece. It's easy for your resume, even if it's great, to be lost in the sea of many people who are applying. So this point about really taking your time, making sure that you are highlighting what sets you apart from other people is really, really, really important. I think, resume, cover letter, yes, there's a science to it and people can support you. I think the next piece about marketing now transparently, Michelle, is it's this social digital focus, because I've heard many stories from search firms and recruiters who say, yeah, we didn't even really, and I'm not advising you not to work on your resume, but they'll say, we didn't even really look at the resume because we connected with someone on LinkedIn, as an example, and it was so strong and their knowledge base was so compelling that just became an additional additive point of their story. And so why do I say that? Some people spend so much time on resume and cover letter, and they neglect the part of their story that's digital communication, which transparently now most people are home, except for our wonderful essential workers. And so there's a lot more eyes. There's more eyes on your LinkedIn page. There's more eyes on your Facebook page. There's more eyes on your website if you have one. And so you really want to make sure that you've taken the time to communicate what you are, what your skill set is, and again, what problem that you're solving. So when it comes to marketing, I think you certainly want to think about verbally how you're communicated in marketing yourself, but you also want to take a moment to think about your digital communication. If you have someone in your network, whether it's a coach, whether it's a person who's worked corporate or even in an organization who can give you perspective, have them audit your story, your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn. Have them tell you, non-biased, how they feel about how you've projected yourself. It's really, sometimes it can be intimidating, but it's really necessary to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success.
Perfect. Lisa, 1 minute. Add your piece to it.
Make sure all your self-marketing material is targeted, relevant, and engaging. All your information should speak to your audience and what they're looking for. If you have gaps in your employment, if you have a history of not doing the tasks that you're about to do, you're going to need to find ways to reshape your narrative so that whoever's reading it for 30 seconds knows quickly who you are, what you bring to the table, and why they should have that conversation with you.
Love it, love it. Okay, so I want to underscore, first off, Lisa, amongst many levels of expertise, is a resume writer. So you want to potentially reach out to her, because I have referred a lot of clients to her, and she's been incredibly helpful in helping them craft their resume. And also, as an honorable mention, all 4 of us are career coaches. So if any of you today, and we're not soliciting our services, we're here to support and help, but if there's any additional support that you need and you may want to engage with any of us, please, that's what we're here for, and this is what our area of specialty is. So all 4 of us specialize in this area. All right, so we're here at the bottom of the hour. If you all don't mind, we try to be incredibly respectful of your time, but if you don't mind, if anyone needs to leave, please, we just have 5 more minutes before we kind of wrap up, because this stuff was really rich, and Chelsea and Lisa did an incredible job in putting a lot of meat on the bones, to these 5 steps. So in terms of wrap up, so we will provide, Amber and I will provide tips and takeaways. We do the best we can to extract from our conversation today, some highlight tips and takeaways. So we're going to make that available to everyone who's on the call today. Secondly, as we've explained to you, the recording is going to be on our respective websites. So you can listen to it over and over again and pick up on the pearls of wisdom that's been shared. In terms of what's coming up, this is a labor of love for Amber and I. We're going to be doing this, spending 12:30 to 1:30 every Wednesday now until, I don't know, there's no more to talk about, which of course is not even possible. But next week, Amber will be taking us through how to start and grow your business. On the 20th, Amber, as she mentioned, we're going to post this, but I'm just kind of giving you some updates. On the 20th, I'll be talking about how to effectively work from home. And we'll probably be providing those who sign up for it a complimentary DISC assessment that is specifically intended for those of us who are working remotely, how to really manage your time and communicate while you're working remotely. And so that'll kind of get us through the end of May, but stay tuned for the list of upcoming topics, but that's what's happening in the next 2 weeks. Amber, what else did I miss before we?
Nothing else. I would just say, if there are any pressing questions, if anyone is like, oh, that was good, but I just want to get this out, we do want to just give you a second to address that. Does anyone have any pressing questions? I think you'll get a lot in our recap as well. And we saw the comment, as Michelle mentioned, about the resume writing. And so you'll get everyone's contact information in the follow-up email. So you'll have Lisa and Chelsea's and know where to find them as well. But I think that's all we have for this week. We're glad that you all joined us. We hope that how, last week, if you didn't catch last week, please go back and watch the recording. As Michelle mentioned, we have the recordings as well as our space. We do this as a labor of love. We do accept donations if you feel like giving them to us. We don't turn them down, and you'll see the donate buttons on our page. But you'll also see the replays there, and you can watch last week's session of the why. We talked about the why of the purpose and how to figure out what your why is. And this week was dedicated to the how. So again, if you missed it, go back and check out the why, and also check your email, because we sent out a purpose workbook that Michelle and I both put together as well. And that could help you in some direction too. And do your assessments. That's your homework. If you have not yet done an assessment, pick one and do it. And self-awareness is key. It's so important to know what's important to you, what you want, how you function well, where you're strong, and those things will really help you in your career. So please, please, please do your assessments.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, ladies. It's interesting. We always just get women. We got to get some male energy on these
Tell
calls.
your guy friends. Yeah,
right. Tell your guy friends, tell your colleagues. This is really rich, but we really do appreciate you signing in, spending your lunchtime with us, and stay tuned. We hope to see you next week.
Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you.